Tutoriales de gramática.
Grammar tutorials.
Pretérito.
Preterite. The preterite is one of the forms used to express the past in Spanish. We use it to talk about actions completed in the past. There are regular conjugations of the preterite, pasé, comí, or encantó, and there are also irregular forms, such as fui or hiciste.
También pasé 2 días en la selva y comí una fruta muy exótica. Y también fui a una playa increíble. Sí, el viaje te encantó e hiciste muchas fotos. Pero, ¿podemos hablar de otra cosa?
Regular verbs in the preterite. Forms. The preterite is formed by adding these endings onto the verb stem.
Hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablasteis, hablaron. Comí, comiste, comió, comimos, comisteis, comieron. Viví, viviste, vivió, vivimos, vivisteis, vivieron.
Please note, there is one set of endings for AR verbs, but another set of endings that works for both ER verbs and IR verbs. In verbs that are regular in the preterite, the accented syllable is always to be found in the ending, not the stem. Please note that the final vowel of the yo and el, ella, usted forms have a written accent. This accent mark is essential because in some cases it is the only way you can tell the difference between the preterite and other verb forms.
¿Quién ganó ayer el partido de tenis? ¿Laura o tú? Gané yo, por supuesto. Siempre gano.
With AR and IR verbs, the nosotros, nosotras form in the preterite is the same as it is in the present indicative, but it is usually easy to tell by the context which is which.
Tengo hambre. ¿Pedimos comida? ¿Otra vez? Ayer pedimos pizza y antes de ayer sushi.
When the stem of an ER or IR verb ends in a vowel, such as caer, creer, or oír, the endings for the third-person singular and third-person plural, yo and yeron, are written with a Y instead of an I, yo and yeron.
Los niños oyeron un ruido misterioso, y entonces cayó del cielo un extraño objeto.
Irregular verbs in the preterite. Forms. In all IR verbs whose stem has in its last syllable an E or an O, the E changes to an I, and the O changes into a U in the third-person singular and plural forms. In the preterite, there is a series of verbs whose stem changes form. Learners must memorize and be able to produce the irregular stem of each one of these verbs. The endings for these kinds of verbs follow a different pattern, and AR, ER, and IR verbs all share this same set of endings.
¿Qué hiciste ayer? ¿Vino alguien a la casa? No hice nada especial. Estuve solo en casa.
Some verbs in the preterite are irregular in unique ways, such as the verb dar and the verbs ir and ser. Please note that the conjugations of ir in the preterite are identical to the conjugations of the verb ser. Although both verbs share the same forms in the preterite, it is easy to tell whether the verb is ser or ir from the context.
Al final, ¿cuánta gente fue a la fiesta? ¿Fue divertida? Solo fuimos Diego, María y yo. Fue una fiesta muy aburrida.
Which syllable is accented in irregular verbs in the preterite? Please note, in the preterite with verbs that have a stem that is different from the infinitive, the accented syllable shifts in the case of two persons, yo and él, ella, usted. Therefore, it is not vino, but rather vino. J-stem irregular verbs in the preterite. Forms. When forming irregular verbs in the preterite, if the new stem ends in J, such as the dij of decir, the ending of the third person plural is geron and not hieron.
Me dijeron que era una fiesta de disfraces.
In all verbs that end in usir, such as producir, reducir, traducir, and conducir, the UC in the stem becomes UJ. And these verbs take the same preterite endings as estar, saber, and venir. Observe that the ellos, ellas, and ustedes forms drop the I because it comes after a J, as we just saw in the case of the verb decir.
El año pasado tradujimos el cartel de no hacer fotos a 20 idiomas y no produjo ningún resultado. La gente no lee.
Use of the preterite. The preterite is used to talk about completed actions that we wish to pin, whether explicitly or implicitly, to a particular moment in the past.
Frida Kahlo nació en México en 1907. A los 18 años sufrió un grave accidente que marcó su vida. Unos años después conoció al pintor Diego Rivera.